Good morning, everyone. I am Merce Labordena. I am the Senior Policy Advisor at SolarPower Europe, and I also oversee the activities of the resource platform. So that is the European platform for corporate sourcing of renewable energy. And for the members of our audience that don't know us, we are indeed the European Alliance of corporate buyers and sellers of renewable electricity here in Europe. So that being said, today I am delighted to moderate this webinar, where we will chat about how to unlock the potential of on-site renewable energy generation and storage, both for corporates as well as for corporate consumers. And before we start, I would like to mention just some housekeeping rules. So this event is being recorded and will be published in the resource website afterwards. We will be answering questions from the audience towards the end. So please do submit your questions on the panel that is provided as we go along. Perfect. So I welcome all of you to stay just 1 hour with me. And what is actually more important, so I welcome all of you to ask questions to the 3 top industry leaders that will be today with us. So we will have the pleasure to chat with Eleanor Russo, Head of E-Industries at Enel, with Karol Gobczyński, Head of Climate and Energy at Ingka Group, and Duncan, Vice President, Sales and New Products of UK at Statcraft. So first, I will call Eliano and have a chat with him. Then I will call Karol and then Duncan and bring them into the conversation to hear the thoughts. All right, so actually, why are we doing a dedicated chat on on-site generation of renewable energy and storage? So that's actually simple. And that's because renewable energy generated on-site or nearby the industrial facilities, or even just in the top of the rooftop of our households, that will be crucial to achieve 100% based renewable energy system in Europe by 2050. However, we are also seeing that because of complex regulations and also because of legislative barriers in some member states, actually the potential for on-site generation and storage is still largely untapped. And this potential is actually very large. So just to give you some numbers, only for solar power, the cumulative on-site solar installed capacity in the commercial and industrial sector 2 years ago, that was about 55 gigawatts. So what does it mean? It means that actually the future could look even brighter, because there are forecasts that show that the accumulative capacity, it could increase about 3 to 4 times by 2030, in about 10 years. And that is certainly impressive. But still, to realize this potential, regulation needs to change and become more favorable. So actually, my questions to you, to the audience, and to the speakers is, how do we take down unfavorable regulations and entry barriers to unlock the potential of on-site generation and storage? And how can we make it easier to generate and store energy? All right, very good. So actually now let's call Eliano. Eliano is head of E-Industries at Enel Global, that are working on leading the energy transformation all over the world.
Good morning, Merce. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Eliano. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. It's a pleasure joining you today. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you for joining us. So just, I would love if you actually could introduce yourself briefly to the audience for them to know you better.
Sure, it's a pleasure. So my name is Eleanor Russo. I'm leading the e-industries global business unit within NLX. NLX was a company established 3 years ago by the Enel group with the objective to enable and accelerate the energy transition towards a more sustainable energy world. Within my unit, we focus on industrial and commercial customers. We take care of the B2B segments with the objective of supporting businesses across the globe to somehow exploit also these macro trends related to decarbonization, electrification, and digitalization in order to create more value for them, for their customers, and for the system as a whole.
I see. Fantastic. So it's my understanding that actually NLX is a bit hard on deploying more on-site generation coupled with storage. So I would like to know, and I'm sure that our audience would love to know more, actually, why are you doing that? What is the added value and the benefits that you see for the corporates, for your customers, when they actually decide to install renewables, being on the rooftops or nearby the facilities?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it helps me to explain also our mission, because when we launched NLX, I think we were living in a less complex energy world, and what we learned is that our B2B customers were mainly focused on receiving a competitive source of power, so they were looking for cheap energy. But in the meantime, going back to the macro trends I was listing before, those same customers learned that they are now facing a much more complex energy world. So cheap power is a sort of precondition for them to compete in their own business world. But now they're also very much focused on efficiency, on sustainability, on resiliency, on power quality. And so our idea, our ambition as NLX is to be their energy partner, to support them to better understand, first of all, the way they buy and they use the energy, and eventually for some of them to evaluate whether it's more convenient to generate their own energy on site rather than buying energy from the grid. And this is very important because those customers, first of all, of course, look at the economics. So they want to understand whether this is going to be beneficial for the business. But those are also the customers that are facing the same challenges we are facing as utilities, which means we are all dealing with a sort of CO2 budget that is left for all of us in order to stabilize the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere and minimize the increase in global temperature. And of course, they also have to meet the expectation of their customers and the society in terms of developing a business that is contributing to create a better world rather than depleting resources. So these are the reasons why we are in this business, because we think by helping our customers to generate renewable energy, we help them to grow along a sustainable development path. And on top of this, we believe that the generation assets themselves can extract more value from our customers. So what we learn is that by offering them renewable solutions and often coupling those solutions also with the ability to store energy with batteries, those same customers can do many more things with those assets, not only get the power, but also offer services to the grid, go on central market. And of course, this is enabling also investments that otherwise would not be commercially viable. So I'll stop here. This is the big picture, but of course I'm keen to enter more into the details if and when needed.
Very good. So it's my understanding that Enel is a global company, and we actually would love to narrow down a little bit to describe the discussion into Europe. And maybe you may be able to explain us a little bit some of the markets for us to better understand actually what is the situation there. Because this is fantastic to provide value for the companies and also for the customers. But still, I'm aware that there are some markets in Europe, but there are still some, say, roadblocks that are impeding us to exploit this potential.
Sure. We as Enel, when it comes to Europe, of course, we are in the traditional Enel legacy countries, such as Italy, Spain, or the Iberia Peninsula in general, Romania, and we're also active in Northern Europe in countries like UK, Ireland, and Poland. I think what we are experiencing is somehow similar in these different regions, in the sense that, as you said, regulation is a key enabler in the sense that is supporting us to give predictability to our customers. You were talking about barriers, and I think what we learned is that when launching on-site generation solution, of course, this is something that requires an investment. There are alternative business models possible. Sometimes we sell solutions turnkey and we transfer the ownership to the customer. Sometimes we work with as an energy service company, so keeping the assets on our balance sheet. Sometimes we offer lease agreements. But to make a long story short, every time there is someone that has to make an investment, and of course the payback of the investment is driven by the economic variables, and of course by the regulation that is influencing these economic variables. And I think for any investor working in a predictable environment, which doesn't mean having guaranteed returns, this is not what we mean, because I mean, in the end we are all entrepreneurs, and so we are used to identify and manage the risk that is associated to our investment choices. But it's important that the regulatory environment is somehow stable, that somehow there are some guiding principles that all the investors, all the stakeholders can rely on, so that they can make also choices that will have an impact not only in the short term but also in the medium and long term. So I would definitely mention this as not as a barrier, but at least as a point of attention, because if we properly follow also what we see in the European directive, the Renewable Energy Directive, if this directive is properly translated in all the different local regulatory systems, I think this is creating a common basis for all the stakeholders to look into renewable generation, also to explore options that go beyond the traditional renewable generation on site. So I'm thinking about microgrids, I'm thinking about energy communities that, of course, if properly implemented, would allow all of us to fully exploit the potential that you were referring to when you introduced the topic.
Absolutely. Actually, we have like fantastic examples of energy communities here in Europe. So there are actually some countries that they are working towards exploiting this potential that is not only for the benefit of Europe as a whole, but also at the community level to strengthen the links between our society. And that being said, I think the audience would also appreciate if you can describe us some of the specific examples of these solutions that you provide, meaning technologies, meaning innovative business models.
Yeah. As you know, Enel traditionally is a utility very much focused on the core business that starts with the generation done through utility scale plants, then moving into distribution and retail activities. What we are trying to do in Enel is something very different. First of all, to put the customer at the center, which is something that is easy to say, but I would say very, very difficult to to do. The customer centricity is a great word, but when it comes to dealing with customer, listening to them, understanding their problems, you learn that even when you work with customers within the same segment, cement, pulp and paper, chemistry, ceramics, then there are very, very specific situations related to the sites, related to their processes, related to their priorities. And of course, the first thing we need to learn as a utility is that the customer is always at the core of what we do. And the customer was something that we didn't deal with for a long time. I mean, we come from a traditional monopolistic world where in the end we were providing energy, but we didn't know that much about our customers, the people and the businesses that were buying this. So the first point I would like to highlight is that we are trying to really develop tailor-made solution, customized solution to address the specific pain points of our customers. This implies a lot of work that needs to be done, starting with the origination of the deals and then during the development phase, where the commercial and technical feasibility of the single solutions need to be properly tested and verified. The other element I would like to stress is that we try to take this as an opportunity to establish a relationship that goes beyond the traditional supplier-customer relationship. Most of these customers are very much focused on their core business, and they need a partner. So they need someone they can trust in order to delegate the management of everything that is related to energy. And this is what we try to build. So we see the distributed energy as a sort of building block. It can be a first step, but then supporting the customer in properly managing the asset, in having access to central markets, in operating and maintaining all the equipment is part of our value proposition. In the end, what we try to do is to leverage capabilities in order to offer services to the customers in order to maximize the value they can extract from their assets.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Eliano. And actually, I would like to take your point on customer centricity, putting the customer at the center of this transition. And I would like to welcome in this conversation to Karol from Ingka Group. So if that's okay, let's call Karol right now. Karol is the head of climate and energy at Ingka Group, working globally to create a better life for the many people and help them to live in a more sustainable way.
Hey Merce, it's Karol speaking.
Hello Karol, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. We have quite cloudy day today in Sweden, but overall good. How are you?
Also very good, and a cloudy day here in Switzerland as well. So let's see, we will manage the day. Maybe at the evening or something, we have a chance to go for a walk or something.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's hope
I
so.
just was listening to your discussion with Eliano and many good points, and I think already that we can touch on when it comes to customer in focus and going into the different segments, collaborations. All these topics are very relevant. So whichever topic you would like to pick up to start with.
Fantastic, awesome. Before moving forward, I actually would love if you could briefly introduce to the audience what's your work at Ingka Group.
Sure. So Ingka Group is one of the companies contributing to IKEA brand, and we are responsible for 90% of the global sales of IKEA, and we are operating on 30 markets. We have three parts of the business. One is IKEA Retail, the second one is Ingka Investment, and the third is Ingka Centers. And within my work, I'm responsible for setting the strategic direction when it comes to climate and energy. And later on, looking how do we integrate and bring our climate strategy and integrate into parts of the running business through costs, new revenues, or increasing revenues, and mitigating the climate risks to reduce them or avoid future costs.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So I am aware that for Ingka Group, the citizens and also the corporate customers are very important. And I would love if you could elaborate, bring us your perspective, your thoughts on actually what is the value that you see for corporates and corporate customers to tap into the potential of generating renewable energy on site or nearby the facilities or on households?
Yeah. First of all, the renewable energy and energy efficiency is opening up amazing opportunity for individuals as well as companies. From one hand, to be part of this amazing journey to decarbonize the global economy and be part of the solution, because we know the climate change is the biggest risk. It will define the future of our planet and of our lives. So this is renewable energy and energy efficiency, tremendous enabler where many people as well as companies can play their part. And to bring some tangible examples, it's of course I will go into on-site generation where I have a lot of passion as well, because renewable such a surprise, but especially the solar is so scalable because we can apply it on people roof houses and turn many buildings into renewable energy power stations. And that's what we started when we entered actually the new segment as with IKEA to offer the renewable energy generation on 8 markets. And now we opened a new market, which is outside of Europe, the first market, which is Australia, where we are creating a simple offer for the people to be able to invest in renewable energy, or if the people don't have upfront capital, to provide the relevant financial solutions so everyone can start benefiting and saving the costs. And then from the corporate perspective and the companies, there are multiple angles, but I think definitely what Eliano said at the beginning, the cost part is very important. And especially when we look on the cost structure going into the future, we know that business, just using business as usual and trying to look into the future and take the decision based on business as usual, it's probably one of the most wrong decisions that you can take, because so many things are changing in reality around you. So you need to look not only how you reduce the cost, but how do you avoid the future costs. And that's why we covered already more than 50% of our buildings with solar installations. We are investing in renewable heating and cooling, which is mainly about ground source heat pumps and air source heat pumps, and looking into digitalization as well of the energy consumption to be able to monitor our consumption and generation in real time and look for new opportunities within this area as well, how we can optimize the cost. And looking for going back to customers, from one hand it's home solar, from the other it's all the solutions at home. So IKEA is offering only LED lighting from end of August 2015. So many years ago we decided already that we'll not offer any other kind of lighting than LED, and the efficiency of the offer is improving as well, which is enabling people to reduce costs. So I will probably stop here. I could go on and on, I think, on this topic.
Very good. So actually, when you have mentioned about avoiding future costs, I guess you are referring to grid expansion?
Excuse me, could you repeat the last part?
Absolutely. Yeah. When you mentioned that one of your missions is to try to avoid the future costs, by
Yep.
leveraging on-site generation. Do you mean try to avoid costs related to grid expansion?
So I mean the costs, mainly avoiding the future increase of the cost of fossil fuels, because maybe to give some more background, so as I said at the beginning, my role is to look on climate agenda from perspective of cost, revenues, and avoiding costs. And revenues and cost reduction is quite easy because we have this already in balance sheet, or we can add it. When it comes to avoiding costs, that's where we have to increase the knowledge as a company where this cost can appear. And that's why we've been working with developing of scenarios. So what is the impact of decarbonization below 2 degrees on our revenues and costs? And then we publish this in our annual report, so you can find more details in Ingka annual and sustainability report, where we are saying how big potential increase of energy costs we see going forward within below 2 degree scenario, and then which actions we are taking to mitigate these costs. And one of the examples is that we see that potential cost of electricity can increase within the regions, especially where it's highly based on fossil fuels. And because of the cost of the pollution and the lack of competitiveness of these technologies as well. So to don't just wait for these higher costs, as Ingka Group, we decided to invest in renewable energy generation on-site and off-site as well. So we in 2020 will generate as much renewable energy as we consume. And today we are generating on 14 markets. We are looking to new markets where we have not been yet generating offsite, like Russia and China. Because if we are able to change the cost as well into revenue streams, then we are creating hedge for our organization as well. And this is how we can mitigate the cost. And then when it comes to on-site, it's the most effective way to mitigate the cost, because if you are able to directly consume the electricity which you generate, you are avoiding the overall cost, total cost of purchase of electricity in many of the markets. And then we are looking into the regulations around energy communities and on-site generation, how to further unlock this potential. And we see that from one hand, we can play active part as energy customers, and many of the companies are ready to do it if there are the right preconditions when it comes to from the legislation regulations side, enabling this easy and simple exchange of electricity with the grid. And of course, it's about designing the fair system. So it's about win-win solution, and that's what we are working on as well as part of our resource platform today.
Perfect, awesome. Thank you very much, Karol. Actually, I see that Eliano, you made the same link about energy communities. So we see value in this model, and also we see that there are some European countries that they are like easing their legislation to allow for these models. And I think that the same as you, that this is the way forward. So actually this would not only empower the citizens, would not empower only ourselves, but also would allow to bring the cost down. And at the same time, we can contribute also to provide grid stability, so to provide also services. So I think that that's a model that definitely can be say replicated in different European member states and beyond as well, of course. Very good. So that being said, I would like to bring in our third industry speaker, and that is Duncan. So, all right, so let's call Duncan now. Duncan is the Vice President of Sales and New Products UK at Statcraft. that is Europe's largest generator of renewable energy.
Hi, Merce.
Hello, Duncan. How are you
Hello,
doing?
hello. Very good, thank you. Very good. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here with you all.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you very much. So, yeah, you have been hearing, I suppose, what we have been mentioning, and also we would love also to hear your views on this topic of on-site generation and storage. And before moving forward, we also would love to hear from you a brief introduction of your role. What's your job at Statcraft?
So my role is to help customers with this energy transition, specifically in the UK and the Irish market. So to put that into context, I need to explain who Statcraft is. We're, as you say, Europe's largest renewable energy generating company. But many of your corporates that are on the call today may not have heard from us, even though we've been around for 125 years. So 97% of our energy is generated renewably, and we're in the wholesale markets and we're developing more renewable assets. But we're also significant traders. So we have a trading platform called Unity, where we trade more than 20,000 megawatts of third-party energy, in addition to our own sort of 20,000 megawatts that we have ourselves. And we trade this all around Europe. And increasingly what we're doing is taking that renewable energy and adding flexibility from gas engines and hopefully increasingly from batteries to take that flexibility where it's required to fill in the gaps, but also to enable more renewables penetration. But now what we're doing more and more is moving further downstream to customers. So we have a brand called Bright in the UK, which is a very fast-growing industrial and commercial customer. It does total renewable energy. We also supply to other suppliers as well, but we're providing rooftop solar solutions along with generation and electric vehicle charging through our Green Contact brand as well. So the aim is to be a sort of zero carbon one-stop shop for those industrial and commercial users.
That's fantastic, Duncan. I also guess that to reach or to become this one-stop shop, you actually you may encounter several roadblocks on the way. That's not an easy thing to do. So to reach that point, what needs to change in terms of regulation?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a big challenge for the industry as a whole and for customers as well, because what we're going through is the world's third industrial revolution. You had the coal one, oil and mass production, and now you've got renewable energy and the internet and smart everything and everything connected. And our industry has to evolve into this new world, and it has to make some quite significant changes. For example, batteries, which can both absorb energy and then produce it again, in many markets isn't actually a defined asset. But we understand about generation, we understand about end users, but this thing in the middle that's neither one thing nor the other, it's not allowed for. And being able to bundle different sources of energy and flexibility and bring it into the marketplace, that's often restricted from being able to be done. And then if you look at the distribution system, it's very old technology. It's 1950s, very clunky technology, and then separating the wires from the system operator and then allowing flexibility to come in to reduce the overall cost of that system. In many markets, that's not really allowed for. So this has to be designed and brought into one place together. And then what we're also seeing is that the cost of renewable energy is falling. really at quite staggering rates, whilst the cost of delivered energy is going the other way. So there's a crossover where suddenly this is going to, the need for renewable energy is going to just exponentially increase because it's so economic. What we see is that in many countries now, front of meter renewable energy is just about economic subsidy free, but behind the meter for a delivered customer, it's a great opportunity for customers to save money whilst helping climate change.
And on that point about this offering for the customers, what are actually the innovative solutions or the technologies, the solutions that you as Statkraft is offering for the UK market, for example, or other countries?
Okay, well, I'd like to talk about two things in particular. One is our trading platform, Unity, and the second is our UK rooftop solar solution. So with Unity, which is this trading platform that takes energy and flexibility from lots of different sources, works across the whole of Europe, but it's probably more advanced in the UK because we've added a lot more flexibility to this system. So what it does, it trades into the day ahead market, the intraday market, into the balancing market. You can select which time of day to actually be working in the energy market directly, or to provide ancillary services to support the grid, or even when this market becomes more developed, to provide ancillary services to the distribution system operator. And then so it can take sources of flexibility from front of meter and behind the meter and then optimize it in the market in real time. Now, to be able to do that, you need to know where and when that is required. So you need a price signal, but you need to be able to monitor your customers' consumption and flexibility on a minute by minute basis, which we can do through Bright. And then allocate it to the right place. And likewise, with the distribution system operator, you need to be able to sense again with real-time operation what's going on that system, which is an area that's developing well. And then the second product is rooftop solar solution. You know, what's odd in the UK is, although we've got more than 10,000 megawatts of solar, do you know how much is on commercial rooftops in the UK? 50 megawatts, that's all. It's tiny. And the reason for that is corporates demand a really fast payback, you know, especially the Anglo-American ones. If it's not less than 3 years, they're not interested. And that's very challenging for our sector. And then you've got, in the UK, you've got what's called the landlord lease problem. Many companies don't own the property they're in, a landlord owns it. And if you put a solar on the rooftop, it creates an interest in the property register. And then also you get an increase in your rateable value. But we have a solution that cuts through this. We provide the whole thing. We pay for it, we maintain it, and we look after it. It solves the landlord lease issue because it's a fitting and not a fixture. And most importantly of all, it's not on the corporate's balance sheet. So basically, it's just a massive reduction in their delivered energy cost, and it doesn't end up on their balance sheet, which almost all solutions do. So that's our second innovative solution.
Very good, thank you very much, Duncan. And actually, I would take the chance to bring our audience into the discussion. So I would like to have all your three together and move to the Q&A section. And we have been receiving lots of questions from the audience, and I would like to make some of these questions for you. So for instance, one of these is for Eliano. So you have been mentioning that customers, they have certain pain points. So from your point of view, what are some of the examples? What are some of these pain points that the customers have encountered?
Okay, thanks. As I said, there are multiple examples, but I think everything goes back to the fact that when we try to sell a distributed energy solution, a renewable on-site solution, maybe together with batteries, the first question we ask our customers is, what is that they want to achieve? What is that they want to get out of that? Because eventually our ambition, our value proposition is not about selling the piece of hardware. We want to sell an outcome. We want to sell a result. And some customers, for example, come to us and they start from the typical need of saying, I'm paying too much for taking energy from the grid. Please help me to understand which is the benefit I will get by generating energy on site, and within which time frame I will be able to eventually recover my investment. Some other customers go beyond that and they say, well, I like it, but you know, I want to invest on my core business, so I also want you guys to find a solution, a way to finance this investment so that I can stay focused on my core business. Some other customers, there are some areas in Italy where, for example, we have a lot of renewable generation already installed, and there are segments, customers that are very sensitive to micro interruptions, for example, and power quality, and so they come to us and say, I want to be resilient, I want to have the ability to go in island mode, and I want to be able to rely, let's say, on my generation asset without being dependent on the grid. Some other customers, for example, they simply want to reduce the grid charges, so the power component of the grid charges, and so they simply want to reduce their peak demand when, let's say, the power component of the tariff is very, very high. Other customers, the more sophisticated ones, are looking for new revenues, and they tell us, look, once I have a battery on site, can I do pricing arbitrage? Can I manage imbalances? So I could make tons of examples, but everything goes back to the idea of facing a customer, understanding the objective or the pain point, and trying to architect a solution that address those needs. And recognizing that we cannot do everything. I mean, we should focus on what we're good at. And this is why I said we focus on the provision of services, on the development phase, the implementation operation, but we also partner with financial investors so that we focus on what we're good at, and our partners who are part of the same network can complement our offering so that in the end the customer can have the solution, can achieve the outcomes, can minimize the financial exposure.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Eliano. And a question for all of you. Actually, talking broader, what do you think are the main policy barriers of facing in doing on-site renewables?
I can start. I think first of all, when it comes to like payback periods and so on, I think the very important part is look what is the cost of an electricity per unit you pay today, and what is how much you can pay with on-site generation. I think it's not only about payback period looking like 3 years, and I think it's, to be clear, to expect 3 years payback period on energy market. It's it's not the payback that energy market is operating with very often. Maybe on energy efficiency, yes, but when it comes to on-site generation, usually it is longer term, because these installations are staying for a very long time, up to 25 years. So I think that's very important. And this is when we talk about legislation, it's important to consider that from one hand. What I think is the biggest challenge is the legislative procedures that are so different between the different countries as well, and what is required to put the installation on your rooftop. That's one part, and that's what we see. The process can be so different. It can be within some of the countries very quick, and within the other countries it can be very long. And within the regions where it's short time of waiting and that you can quickly put the system, of course, that enables unlocks the potential. The second part is what we've seen in the past. I think what we are learning from, I think within the energy world as well, is that the legislations cannot be designed for 1-2 years, and because this creates like this boost and the bust, and the situation that there is a big interest and then it's disappearing. And I think bringing here the example from Poland, actually, where for individual households, the legislation is for quite a long time, and it's very easy to understand because whatever you generate and not able to consume and put to the grid, you can take 80% of it anytime you need within 12 months, for example. This creates a lot of clarity from the individual perspective. So then they are interested to invest in it, because if we would like to create fair and inclusive energy market, we need to look for much more simplified ways to enable consumers to be part of it, but as well, from the other hand, be fair, because we know there are some costs as well, which and there are multiple players. So how do we design that? So I would say the legislative procedures at the beginning, and then lack of stable, unified frameworks. And when I'm talking about stable, unified, it doesn't mean that they are not flexible. I think these regulations should have built-in flexibility. So when the prices of PV are going down, then it should be reflected as well within how the market operates. So for sure. So I think this is a bit missing, and I think if we would like to scale up and unlock the massive potential and the tremendous investments within this sector, we should address these two areas.
Awesome, thank you. Eliano, Karol, and Duncan, please feel free to jump in. So what do you think, what do you see is the trend for third-party financing of rooftop solar in Europe? So maybe that may be PPAs, that may be leasing.
I think maybe if I may jump in, if I could just pick up on some of the things that Karol said, and then to answer your question, Merce. So I think we're relatively lucky in the UK that our regulatory regime is practical, and one of the things that's been put in place over the last 20 years is the concept of grandfathering. So the idea there is it's largely around the regulatory regime, subsidy regime for renewables, that once it's put in place, it stays in place to reduce the political risk, which is a really practical way of making things lower cost. And generally speaking, we leave the market to competition, and the regulator tends to intervene on market failure. The biggest issue is how you deal with the wire side, where most of your costs are fixed, both on the distribution and the transmission side. So we're going through a process in the UK of looking at from a holistic point of view, and it looks like it will be set into various bands. My hope is that we manage to grandfather that again, so that you take away that political risk and can invest. But just going to your next question about leasing and that the future of that market, I suspect that's probably the way to go in the future, because if corporates are looking for solutions that give fast paybacks, that's simply not achievable in the utility sector at the moment. And I suspect that the way to go is through a lease solution which isn't on the balance sheet, because then the corporates aren't investing anything. They simply see the cost savings, and hence I think that will be a big way forward. So that requires quite some design in order to achieve that and to get it off the balance sheet.
I see. Good point. Eliano, would you like to add on the response?
Yeah, maybe a couple of elements. I'm in agreement basically with what Duncan and Karol said. I would like to stress once again, when it comes to regulation, the importance of predictability, as we said before, the importance of simplicity, because I think the rules also have to be very clear and easy to understand. I would also make a reference, I think Duncan partially did this, to the market distortion. I think we're talking about a technology today that is absolutely competitive, and I would welcome the avoidance of distortions that unfortunately today we have in regulation. Just to make a couple of examples, when it comes to the provision of services to the grid, often we face a specific constraints or threshold, so that if the size of your plant is below a certain threshold, you are not able to access some markets to provide some services. There are countries where the provision of services is mandatory and needs to be done by traditional, conventional utility scale plants. And I think this is somehow limiting the potential and the value of on-site generation solutions. So I think we should create an environment where this potential can be fully exploited, and let the market decide which is the asset that is better positioned to provide a certain service. Because in this way, I think we make something that is beneficial also for the system, because we get the same service, minimizing the system cost. And on financing, I agree completely. It's a key topic. We are offering multiple options to our customers. We also join forces with financial players such as Infracapital. We established joint ventures where those financial players are keen to invest their money in order to support the implementation operation of those assets. The disclaimer is, traditionally this world started on utility scale plants with 20 years PPA, so it was easy to get finance because people can see a lot of risk, and of course they found it easy. I think now we go more and more in a merchant world, where if you want to exploit the full value, you need also to be able to understand and to accept some kind of merchant risk. I think it's important we somehow also educate the financial investors so that they can better understand the risk attached to the different assets and find the proper risk reward profile that will be somehow accepted by themselves and by their own shareholder.
Perfect. Happy to hear that. And now actually I have a last closing question for each of you. So I would like to ask you that if you could choose one game changer for 100% renewable energy future to happen now, what would that be?
That's a good question. I think I would take solar along with batteries. Probably, I mean, it works very well in Southern Europe now, but I think as the costs, as the costs come down, and there's a lot of potential both in solar and batteries with new technologies that are on the horizon. You've got something that is relatively straightforward in terms of planning permission, because it doesn't have a high turbine height, which causes planning issues. But you've got the benefits of renewable generation as well as firmness and choice about when the energy is generated, and that flexibility is really important, and that benefits the customer and benefits society. It benefits customers because they can optimize when to take that energy, and if there's a surplus or constraints on the site itself, when it's taken to the market, it can be optimized as it goes into the marketplace as well. So you get the best of both worlds. So I think that's what I would choose, and it's near enough as well to be practical.
Thanks, Duncan. And Karol, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. When I think if I would need to choose, it's solar and the batteries. Realistic part, it will be adding wind into the picture, and then I think we are there.
Perfect. And in your opinion, Eliano?
I will have to be a little bit more diplomatic.
No,
I'll tell you why. Because I think a few years ago, if you were talking about the fully decarbonized world, people were looking at you like if you were crazy, no? Today, I think what we understand is that, and this is what Duncan stressed a couple of times, we need a huge amount of flexibility to create the conditions for a fully decarbonized world. And unfortunately, it will be very difficult to cherry pick because I think there is no bulletproof solution, because we need different sources of flexibility with different activation time, different duration. So batteries with PV will play a crucial role, but the same will apply to demand response. I'm thinking about the grid infrastructure that we are creating to charge electric vehicles, because in the end, every time a battery will be connected to the grid, I mean, the car will be a battery with wheels. So, and this, if you think about the size of a battery of a car today, 60, even 100 kilowatt of charging power, I mean, this is a tremendous potential, and if the e-mobility will grow as we expect, we will be able to rebuild a generation fleet entirely. So I think we have to rely on all these resources if we really are serious about building a fully decarbonized energy world.
Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to hear that and to have these closing words, to hear these closing words. And I think it's about time. And I would like to thank you all very much, Eliano, Karol, and Duncan, for your fantastic insights and for being today with all of us. And just now also some housekeeping things. Just to finish up, I just would remind the audience to subscribe to our resource mailing list, and also to follow the resource on social media for all the latest news and updates, and also to find out more about upcoming webinars, as this one, as part of the resource calling series that would be like in September. And yeah, so we will be addressing topics like the European Recovery Plan and its role in strengthening renewable energy infrastructure, also operations and maintenance of renewable energy plants after the Corona crisis, and the effect of the crisis on credit risks and the impact on long-term financing. So that being said, again, Eliano, Karol, and Duncan, thank you all so much for this fantastic conversation. I have enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and I wish you all a fantastic day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.